Okay, if you clap for me. Right, good. Let's have it. One person, just once again. Thank you. Right.
Go. It just feels like your insides are barbed wire.
You fight to be heard. Now people are understanding it's not just a period.
Okay, we're recording. So, day one of filming. What is endometriosis?
It's a chronic pain condition and it's characterised by the presence of tissue like the lining of the womb found in unusual places outside of the womb, mainly within the pelvis, but can even be seen in faraway places like the lung.
Endometriosis affects 1 in 10 women, and I'm one of them. It was back in January 2020 when I joined the group of hundreds of millions of women around the world who've been diagnosed with this condition. This is a chronic disease that I knew I'd have to live with for the rest of my life, but it was still a relief finding out what I had as I went through years of not knowing what was causing all this pain.
So horrible growing up and just seeing everyone else be so normal and just taking medicine just so that I could be like them. Like, why are they just able to do sports day or like able to do simple things that I wasn't able to do?
I met 7 women who've been diagnosed with endometriosis and met each other through the Endometriosis Foundation charity.
I was like yourself, I would be throwing up. I'm very athletic, so I'd be missing out on playing my netball and all of that kind of stuff. You fight to be heard. Now people are understanding it's not just a period. There is actually a lot more to it.
I had a doctor turn around to me and sit there and say, I think it's all in your head and you're making this up. And it's like, you have so much self-doubt and having to battle with people all the time to be like, no, there is something wrong with me. I know there's something wrong with me.
Though symptoms vary from person to person, some people describe their endometriosis cramps as feeling like contractions that come and go and mimic those of labour pains. Endometriosis is a very complex and impactful condition. Some of the symptoms are pain in your lower tummy or back, period pain that stops you doing your normal activities, pain during or after sex, feeling sick, constipation, diarrhea, pain when passing urine or opening the bowels, chronic fatigue and difficulty getting pregnant. And all these symptoms can lead to problems with mental health.
No one told me how badly the endometriosis could spread. No one told me it could go to all your different organs, and I had surgery on my bladder, on my bowel, my ovaries, my tubes, and that's still impacting me now. This was 4 years ago.
Nobody knows what causes endometriosis, and it can affect women of any age, including teenagers. And of all the symptoms, and I've spoken to many women who feel the same, the one that scares me the most is difficulty getting pregnant. There is not enough research done to establish the cause of why endo causes fertility issues, but I'm 30 years old and I'm someone who wants to have children one day. I can't help but feel the pressure of the fertility timeline. It's always in the back of my mind.
My doctor told me essentially, when you want to have kids, come back. But I'm just thinking now that I don't know what's going on. You know, there could be a lot that has changed, or I don't know how many eggs I have left. There's all these questions that, shall I just wait until, like, do what my doctor said and just wait until I want to start having kids?
I was lucky, I've got a son who's now 20, but I did have a secondary infertility whereby due to the endometriosis I wasn't able to have another child.
I was first told I could have trouble conceiving when I was 13. And it's like, a 13-year-old shouldn't even be thinking about that.
I was advised to go and egg freeze, but it was just something that I wasn't even considering before I went on this journey. And I actually did see 4 private consultants prior to the specialist I ended up having my surgery with. And all 4 of them as well said, oh, wait, you want children, or maybe eat some more meat, I think one of them told me.
I know this is going to sound crazy, but there are doctors out there that are advising women to get pregnant as a way of helping treat endometriosis pain.
Like, when I remember going to the GP, and I'm sure we've all had this, and one of the first thing they said is, I know what will cure your endometriosis, get pregnant. And I remember saying to the GP, and like you at the time, I didn't have a partner, still at home. Still in the same situation now, but anyway, well, who's going to get me pregnant? And he just stared at me and I was like, well, if you're not going to answer my question, you can't give me such an absurd suggestion.
It's not a cure, it's nothing. It just basically means while you're pregnant, your endometriosis isn't growing, and it starts afterwards again. So it's like the whole thing of like getting pregnant is absurd.
Just like, well, if the scan, like what you said, if it picks it up, of how advanced my endo was, then I wouldn't have had to have that back-to-back surgery. You know, which then has now, having these back-to-back surgeries has then led to like fertility problems for myself. Like the charity has really, sorry, I'm gonna get emotional. It's really helped me. So like with my fertility journey, right now it is a struggle. But if I was told these things at the start, just like with anyone else, then you know I would have done stuff that I needed to do. I'm 40 next month, but like as you said, you're seen as a geriatric, and getting told that as well when you go into your appointments. It's horrible.
What would you say to the healthcare professionals that are directing women towards either just going on the pill because that's the easiest option, or falling pregnant?
So I'll answer the first question first. I think telling somebody to try and get pregnant to treat endometriosis is an awful thing to say for so many reasons. As we know, endometriosis can make it difficult to fall pregnant anyway, so it's really insensitive to say that to somebody.
We went to Edinburgh and spoke to Professor Andrew Horn, who specialises in endometriosis. He has been doing several clinical trials to try and find a treatment for chronic pelvic pain, and I wanted to find out if there will be a cure anytime soon.
The work that we've been doing in the laboratory has largely been to better understand what causes endometriosis, and then the clinical trial work has been looking largely at trying to develop non-hormonal treatments for the condition. And one of the things that we've discovered is that patients with endometriosis produce greater amounts of a chemical called lactate, and lactate is the chemical that's produced as the body breaks down carbohydrates. There's work evolving in the field of the microbiome because there's been some evidence to suggest that the microbiome is altered, the gut microbiome is altered in patients with endometriosis. And potentially if you could then alter the microbiome either by giving some sort of treatment or better still by altering the diet or giving a dietary supplement, you might then be able to treat the endometriosis and impact upon the symptoms.
So many women are probably wanting to ask this question. Why has it taken so long to create a cure for endometriosis? I
think the main reason is investment and money and resources into research around endometriosis. So endometriosis is hit challenges because it's a women's health condition, and historically women's health conditions haven't received the same amount of funding as conditions which affect both men and women. And then I think the major problem that we have at the moment is that we don't have a good test for endometriosis. So most endometriosis at the moment is still diagnosed by surgery, and the patients have to undergo a general anaesthetic. And what we really need is a simple blood test that could be done in general practice that would diagnose the condition quickly.
Part of the frustration is how long a diagnosis takes. On average, it takes 8 years. 8 years for women who experience initial symptoms to get a diagnosis. And so many are misdiagnosed because this disease is basically unknown, even to the professionals.
The saliva test is a combination of biomarker and the saliva and the NGS technology and artificial intelligence technology.
This is Professor Sofiane Bendifala. He is the director of the Expert Center for Endometriosis in Sorbonne University in Paris, and he spent the whole of COVID lockdown developing a saliva test for endometriosis. This is really groundbreaking stuff, because with this test, it would take up to a week to get a diagnosis, and that's pretty decent in comparison to 8 years.
In my hospital, is to focus on cancer and endo. And when you work on those two diseases, you understand that endo is very close to cancer. There is in endometriosis lots of kind of biomarker, but we work on specific RNA and microRNA, and these biomarkers are known especially in cancer. And because I told you before that endo is close to cancer, we say, okay, if we can find microRNA in cancer, we will find them in endo. But we have to do all this work.
What made you interested in starting to look at endometriosis, especially as a man?
Especially because it is the most complex disease what we can find now for in women's health. I am the father of 2 daughters one of 2 years and one of 3 years old. I know that if I have now front of me 10 years to find solution for them.
I've now had 8 surgeries since 2016 for endometriosis, which is just, it's a lot to put your body through. I was persistent, I was going to the GP, I was, trying to get answers to what was going on with me, but I was just hitting this brick wall every time. Eventually, I was diagnosed age 25. This was following a 3-year hospital stint where I'd be admitted sometimes 2-3 times a week because my bowel just stopped working. They attempted to perform a keyhole surgery, but I don't think they could get through. So that quickly changed to an open surgery. So they kind of cut me from hip to hip. Once they opened me up, they found that I had stage 4 endometriosis, frozen pelvis disease, and they said that it looked like someone had poured cement into my pelvis. Everything was just stuck together by so much scar tissue and blood. They drained, I think, 2 litres of blood from my pelvis. So I had to have, obviously, a total hysterectomy, which isn't a cure for endometriosis. I think it's really important that we talk about that part. As proven, it has come back. But I'm now in surgical menopause, and I was 29 when I had my operation. To now be early 30s in menopause.
A hysterectomy is removing the uterus, ovaries, fallopian tubes and cervix. Carla's late diagnosis resulted in irreversible organ damage involving multiple organs and, sadly, infertility.
I think there needs to be a real shape up and a real investment into research, treatments, because the treatments are very limited at the moment. You can only really be diagnosed through having invasive surgery, and not everybody wants to go and have surgery. And I've learned so much through the community side, more so probably from the medical professional side. You do, and nobody knows it better than you, nobody knows your body better than you. And I think hopefully in time, with more attention and more awareness, we can see improvements.
For years after my diagnosis, I was keen to try and find a long-term solution to try and manage my pain. I turned to supplements, healthy diet and exercise. It turned into a process of trial and error as I was so determined to find a cure. Natasha Richardson is a medical herbalist who started her own business helping women to stop putting up with painful periods and other associated conditions. She created a community of females trialling natural remedies, whether it's drinking herbal tea or applying natural balms.
I was struggling with period pain for the first time in my life. As I was learning more about herbs, it was starting to come up more and more often that maybe that wasn't so normal and not to be just dismissed. I went to the doctor to look for answers first and foremost, see if there was something going on that I needed to have diagnosed. And they were just like, it's just period pain. And I was like, okay. And it was getting to the point where it was becoming debilitating. I was having a day off or 2 each month where I couldn't do anything at all. So I started to treat it with herbs. And I found that not only was there just this huge variety of options, but also that it worked pretty quickly.
A lot of women turn to herbal medicine because there's no cure. Do you think it works, and why?
I know that it works because of the experiences that I've had with patients, but in lots of countries around the world, we've continued to have both and they work alongside each other. And that's where I would like to see in the future.
Let's go back to Edinburgh. While I was there, I spoke to Professor Andrew Horn, who you saw earlier on. I also spoke to Sarah Jane. She got referred to take part in the EPIC trial, which was 3 months of taking dichloroacetate. Sarah Jane went through 2 surgeries to get rid of her endo, but it always came back, and at one point, a flare-up, which she thought would last a few days, caused her to take 6 weeks off work because she was bedridden from pain. There was only one option left for her to try.
That was the one option I was not really wanting, and it was to induce medical menopause. I can't keep living like that. I can't be off work indefinitely. I can't just be curled up in bed crying every day. It just feels like your insides are barbed wire, and just every movement just rubs the barbed wire, and it's horrific. I've heard a lot of women say it, but I'm going to repeat it. If men had endometriosis, it would have been cured in the 18th century. It would be history by now.